Hear Me See Me podcast is sponsored by Zenoti, the #1 cloud software for salons and spas. Because when people feel good, they find their greatness. I am Stuart Roberts, and I'm really excited to introduce my new podcast, Hear Me See Me. It's just over 5 years ago, I did something that changed my life. What it did, more than I could have ever realised, it helped me. I have met some absolutely amazing people. Some of the people that work in some of these places, many of them are volunteers, but some of them, it is their job. I had this idea after being inspired by a guy in America I'd seen cutting hair on the streets and seeing the difference it made to the guys who were there. This is more than a job. This is a calling. Hello, this is Stuart from Hear Me See Me podcast. Today I've got a wonderful young lady who I met recently at a horrendous sleepout that we had. It was freezing cold, but it was a magical evening, and met some great people. And Kerri was one of them. Kerri Douglas told us all her story. It blew me away, and immediately I thought, I've got to get this young lady on the podcast. And she's kindly done it on a Sunday evening. She's got toothache, so bear with her. But Kerri, nice to see you. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good, yeah. Nice to see you.
How's the tooth? Get it, yeah.
You know what, I just wish I'd rip it out, to be fair, just get it done with.
Right, before, I must say this, and this is a horrendous story, but one day I was like that, and I was so in pain with this tooth, I went and got a pair of pliers, and I grabbed hold of my tooth, and I pulled it out, and my kids are all grown up now, but they was all little tots, and one of them come running in just as I had hold of it, and you know the point where you can't do, and the blood was running down my arm like that, and I just pulled it out, and they come in and they went, ah, and then they all come running in, I've got 4 kids, and they all come running out again, screaming, my wife coming out to go at me. But I was so desperate, and I pulled this thing out, ended up breaking it, and it made it harder for the dentist anyway. So, Kerri, do not pull it out with pliers, all right? Don't be tempted.
I'm seeing the dentist tomorrow. It's all good. I'm doing it professionally.
Right, you told us your story that night, and it really inspired me. You know, it's sort of your story is my story, and our stories we've heard them a lot, but people need to know when there's a solution and when there's a hope for people. So go to the beginning. Tell us your story, Kerri.
Okay, so I was born in Gateshead in Newcastle in the 80s. And my mum, she had mental health issues, and my dad didn't really stay around for long. Now, my mum was in and out of relationships, and she was very, it's not fair to say unstable, but she was a bit chaotic. And because the mental health system wasn't really in place then, she didn't get the right help that she needed. So she was quite chaotic, as I say. So whenever there was a problem, instead of dealing with it head on, she would think, right, I'm going to pack my bags and run away from this situation and go from Newcastle to London, from London back to Newcastle, back and forth like a yo-yo. And we became neglected, and we had some times where we'd live with our nan, or like for me, I got put into foster care when I was 11. And that was the start, really. I mean, I was abused physically, mentally, and sexually as a child as well, which didn't make things easy for me. So when I got into the age of 11, I'd become obviously we'd become teenagers and hormonal and stuff like that. I became quite chaotic, unsettled, and I just kept running away from foster placements and bunking off school. And then one day I got caught up in West End when Sound Republic used to be there. It's gone now. I was quite gutted when I saw it had gone the other day. I went round with the kids. I was like, where's it gone? But I used to go up there to see the famous people because MTV Select was there. And I used to go and see Donna Rare every day and Richard Blackwood. I used to love it. And one day I missed a train home to my foster placement, and I found myself wandering the streets of the West End, and I just started congregating with the group on the Strand that happened to be homeless, and there was like loads of soup kitchens, and I just got talking to them, and I just felt like I clicked. Like I'm a 13-year-old gobby little madam who's like sticking middle finger up at the social services. And I just felt like they were just the same as me, kids that weren't loved, nobody cared about, but, not much older than me. Some were like a lot older than me, which were like big brothers and stuff like that. And then little brothers. We were just like a family. And anyway, we ended up sleeping under Charing Cross train station, where I just felt like that was where I was meant to be. I just felt like nobody wanted me. Nobody really gave a monkeys about me and my family. So like, why not just be a big girl in the city sort of thing? And I kept doing that up until I was 17. I was running away from foster placements. Did have an odd couple where I did settle and stay stable. But those foster parents that I had in them occasions, they were the ones that showed me love rather than an obligation to fulfill a job sort of thing, because I used to be like, oh, you don't care about me, you're just looking after me because it's a hefty pay packet sort of thing, So there was an occasional foster carer there that actually got through to me on a level of love. So, and they were successful placements, I need to throw in there. But when I turned 17, because I've been so chaotic, I've been moved from area to area. I was in Bexley, I was in every single area, like Gravesend, Gillingham, all over. They'd run out of foster placements for me. So then they had to send me to Eastbourne. And then when that placement fell apart, I just felt like there was no more hope for me, because I really loved that placement as well. So when they put me into supported accommodation, because I'd already turned 16, they had to then move it onto supported lodgings rather than foster placement. So basically they gave me a key to a property and said, there you go, like, get on with it. There was someone that it was somebody's property. They were just meant to mentor me, but that didn't really happen either. So I thought, oh, well, I'm free. No one can tell me what to do. So I'm just going to go up West End all the time and sleep out and do what I'm doing. So then it got to a point where social services were like, we can't do anything for you now. Like, we wash our hands with you, basically. Because, I mean, I get it to a point that if they can't, I did kind of mess up a few times, but there's never an alternative where you've got to say, well, I know you're sleeping rough, but there's nothing I can do for you. And the trouble was I was under a full care plan until I was 21. They were obligated to actually do whatever they could regardless, like there was no, I mean, I wrote a book and there's a statement from my foster carer in the book that clearly says that she had a call from the duty social worker one night, this is when I'm 16, still in foster care, saying that they weren't going to bother going to get me because they knew what I was like. This is a social worker, and it's like, you having a laugh, so that was what I was up against, like people not caring and stuff like that. And like, basically I've got ADHD. So because of my mental health issues and the fact that I was a naughty kid, I say in air quotes, because that's what us kids with ADHD do get labelled as, naughty kids. But it's because I wasn't given the right nurture and the right environment, I rebelled because of all the chaos that was going on in my life. So by the time I'd hit full-blown teenage years at 16, and they're saying that like they don't even care to even come and get me, it's like, well, do you know what, you can just jog on now. And then when I was 17, I found myself addicted to crack, and it wasn't a long time I was on crack. It was a very short period. But I turned up to the day centre. You probably know it's St Martin's. It was Connections back then for the under 25s. And I'd gone there one day and I was speaking in this really weird American accent, like, yeah, hey, man, this is me, pretending I wasn't actually me, but I was high as a kite, been up for days on crack, so I was a kid. I was a baby. I was a kid. Very, like... Not really, even now at 37, I'm quite immature. I'm never growing up. I'm Peter Pan's apprentice, do you know what I mean? No way. So, but at this age, I was very naive. I was very immature. So Connections got me to go to St Thomas's over in Waterloo, and I'd had like a severe chest infection. I was like so close to my chest packing up. They put me into the hospital for like overnight, and the next day they discharged me back to the streets. So, but I felt abandoned all over again because like this is the NHS system. I'm a kid. I'm under a care plan, and they've just discharged me straight to the streets. Like they evident mental health problems. And so then I just picked up the phone and I rang my sister to go back to Newcastle. And then I got my first flat, which was an absolute disaster. Mentality again, social services just said, right, okay, we can't help you. Go and represent yourself as homeless. So I went as a 17-year-old girl to the homeless unit saying, like, there's nowhere for me to live. So they put me into a temporary hostel and then gave me my first tenancy. Now, it was a 2-bedroom flat and I was going to make it the best home ever. And it was going to be beautiful. It was going to be amazing. So when you leave care, you get £1,000 leaving care grant, but they only gave me like £300 of that leaving care grant because they knew how chaotic I was with but they knew to do that. But what they did do is they let me spend £300 on decorating materials. There was no carpets, no nothing. Spent the £300 on decorating materials and I said, right, there you go. We'll help you into the house with them. They put them in the corner and they just left me to my own devices. Now, bearing in mind, I've got ADHD and I'm very impulsive. So I've just looked at that paint there and I thought, right, okay, I'm going to paint the floorboards, never mind carpet. I'm going to save some money and I want to paint the floorboards. So I took the white gloss paint and I decided to start painting from the door to the corner of the room. And when I got to the corner of the room, I looked out and I thought, well, how am I going to get out the door now? So I had to walk across this freshly gloss painted floor. So for the next however long I was in that property, it wasn't much longer, but however long I was in the property, I'm looking at my footprints across the room, so that was like basically a big red light saying, do not give this girl a tenancy, mum, what are you doing, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? So there was no care support in place. There was no like help or anything to actually make sure that I maintained this tenancy and held it down, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? So that ended badly to making myself intentionally homeless, I say in air quotes. And so I ended up back down the West End again. And for there's some bits that's so blurred because I've been back and forth. I try and remember where I was and what I was doing at certain times. But after a while, I got another flat. After that, after flying through hoops, I got a little 1-bedroom flat in Felling in Gateshead. That went all wrong as well when I got with my partner because I pretty much abandoned it to try and save his life. He was addicted to heroin and I'd fallen pregnant with his baby. This is when I was 19. And so I'd lost that property and then because of my chaotic life, social services were like, right, we're taking this baby off you once you've had it. Like, there's no way you're going to have this baby to keep. So it destroyed me. It's like, are you kidding? All I've ever wanted is unconditional love, and now you want to come and take my baby away from me? And they did when he was born. But 6 months into the pregnancy, when they said that to me, my partner at the time was like, yeah, I'll just have some of this. And he offered me the heroin on the foil and I took it like an idiot, pregnant. And you know what? If you could go back into the past and see yourself, I would literally punch myself in the face because it's like, what are you doing, you idiot? But I'll get to what I feel about that in a minute, like now, because things happen for a reason, don't they, in the biggest grand scheme of things. So when my son was taken off me, that was it. It's just like, you just destroyed me. You just self-destruct. It was like my humanity switch was flicked. It's like I did not care about anything or anyone, especially myself. So we ended up in London at Christmas. This was 2005. And then, so for the next 4 or 5 years, I just deteriorated on the streets. I was taking hundreds of pounds of drugs a day. I was shoplifting to make my money. I was begging to make my money. There was even times I've never got into prostitution, but there's a thing called clipping, which is kind of like, you might have heard about clipping with like in the circles that you've worked in. It's like, if like I used to say, well, if perverts are going to come and ask me to do stuff to them, then I'm just going to take their money and tell them to jog on. Do you know what I mean? So, but I used to say, because I used to look so young, I was just like, I'm only 15, mate, what are you doing? Do you know what I mean? Because you get some, like being a woman, it is hard. You get so many perverts, especially when you're sleeping and you see them, or you're sitting there in your spot on Piccadilly or whatever, and you see them walking. And I don't mean to say perverts, but it's true. I can't help to term I'm using. I should be a bit more graceful, should I? Like just strolling back and forth, looking you up and down, then all of a sudden waltzing over to you. business, you want business? Like, no, mate, jog on. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, that's what we're up against as women on the street. So, but I was there. So just trying to block it all out, I just created my own world. It was like nobody was getting in. Like I was numb to emotion, numb to feeling. You just took away the most important thing I've ever wanted in my whole life, which is unconditional love. No, the world can just do one. And to be honest, I thought that's where I was going to be. Like I thought I was going to get carried away in a box in that life, to be fair. Then when I turned 24, which was 2008, I'd had enough. I'd been up for days on end smoking crack, and I was like literally body popping everywhere. Like I couldn't keep still. I was under so much influence. It was ridiculous. So I just remember sliding down the wall, looking up at the sky, just screaming and crying. I was sobbing my heart out, saying, if there's a God out there, you need to get me out of this now. And you know what, right? It is like a miracle, the fact that what happened next, you know, it's like, so within the weeks I started getting like a new determination, like honestly I really got to get out of this. Was my headspace. And I tried recovery so many times before, and I wasn't ready. I wasn't in a place where I need to do this, but something had like flicked in me. Something had changed. It's like, I can't live like this. I can't, like, I'm 24. Is this really how I'm going to live for the next 60 years if I make it 60 years, you know? So then I had this big meltdown on Piccadilly. It was facing, you know, the Christopher Wren Church. St James's. Is it St James's? I think it's called St James's.
I know you mean, yeah.
I used to sleep in there sometimes as well. It's a lovely church. I love it. But it was opposite there, and I just slid down and I sobbed, and I was like, but then weeks later, I got this new determination. I managed to get into a hostel. Now, like normally you have to get referred into a hostel. And I was like, I ain't even bothering with the referral process. I went to Tesco's on Bayswater Road, robbed a pot noodle, and turned up at Look Ahead Bayswater and said, look, I need somewhere to live. I need to get in somewhere now. And I ended up in there that day, you know, and it's like, come on. So something was in my favour, something was on my side. I was like, nothing's going to stop me now. Nothing's going to stop me. So it was going really, really well. It was going amazing. And I was getting clean, and I was doing these drop-in services at the Hungerford Project. You know, it was brilliant. And then, so because one of those services was blood-borne virus clinic. So basically, because I was an intravenous drug user, there was a chance I could have got hepatitis, HIV, blah, blah, blah. So I thought, wait, I've got nothing to lose. I'm going to get tested. And it was like literally my worst nightmare has come true, because when I got tested, I got diagnosed with hepatitis B, hepatitis C and HIV. So I was just like, meltdown, signed a death warrant. What is the point of living now, sort of thing? And I relapsed. I went backwards, and it weren't long. It weren't long at all. It was just, like I say, something was in my favour, because that determination didn't go away. Like I was a fighter inside, and I weren't giving up, because one day it was like I had this voice in my head saying, if you don't get your act together, then you're going to be dead in 2 years, and you're not going to see your little boy ever again, right? And it was like, that was my humanity switch flicked back on. You know, like that's the only way I can describe it. And it was like, yeah, and that was it. That was the day I said no more, you know, and that was 2008. I went back to Newcastle, done a complete detox on methadone, like crack, everything. I just came off of everything, and I stayed there until the October. And then I moved back into Look Ahead Victoria. Now, Look Ahead Victoria, I've got to point out, it is the worst hostel you could ever live in when it comes to recovery. You've got dealers on the doorstep. You've got people that just want to keep you down and everything. But that said, the people in the hostel, the staff, and the setup that was there, it was the best. You know, it was like, it felt like home, you know, like, it was welcoming, it was like nurturing and everything. You know, it was just everything I needed from a support network. And there was 3 ladies, my dream team. I mention them every time, I can't not, because they are literally the dream team. I always say how important it is when you're recovering from homelessness or even addiction, that the team that's working with you has to communicate, that has to understand as a group, as a collective, what's going on and how to address the issues surrounding that other issue. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not just about substance abuse or homelessness. It's like, why has that occurred to begin with? We need to strip back that first to be able to get, because there's always going to be a relapse otherwise, isn't there? If you don't get to the root, you're always going to see them. Well, they saw that and they knew exactly how to get to me, and that all I ever wanted, even as a little girl, was to be loved. So they loved me. Like, I treat them like absolute shit, mate, to be fair. Yeah. I was like, nah, I hurt before I get hurt, so you're going to take everything I throw at you, and then you're going to tell me to F off. And then that's going to be me proven right, blah, blah, blah. But it didn't work like that this time round, did it? Because they never told me to go away. And they loved me and loved me. I was literally hanging out of the window one day, swinging with a bottle of vodka, saying I wanted to end my life. Then Kath, she's like the head of outreach at St Mungo's charity now, but she was on the other side of the door, and I'm sobbing, I want to kill myself, I've had enough, blah, blah, blah. And I just slid down the door sobbing, as I do, sliding down things. And Kath was on the other side of the door sobbing too, just because she knew my potential and how much, like, she just loved me, regardless of my baggage and my chaotic mind. You know, I was awful. I was one of those, you know, when you see, like, the worst case scenario where they're effing and blinding, like, all this off their face and everything like that. That was me, mate. I was walking around with blood all over my clothes from injecting, or like I'd been so high on crack, I'd be digging up the floor, like digging out things. I was horrible. I was like, but that was just my circumstance. Do you know what I mean? It's like, although I was horrible and like picking my face, I was like, you would not think it was me, like, that I'm talking about, you know. And I don't want to talk badly about that, but at the same time, I recognise that wasn't a good thing for me. That wasn't a good look sort of thing. But I'm not discriminating against anyone that's stuck in that lifestyle still, because it's not who they are. That's what they've become because of the fact that one of the worst things about being homeless and living on the streets is the feeling degraded, the feeling like you don't fit in, that you belong there, you know. So when it comes to searching bins and stuff and everyone's looking down the nose at you thinking you dirty little tramp, that's fine, but you don't know what's going on inside here or inside my brain. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's where it comes to my life now, where I'm there now trying to open people's eyes and say, well, actually, there's a story behind that. You know, there's a reason that they feel so belittled that they have to search a bin for food, or they are so cunning not to trust anyone, so they'll have you off in an instant. Do you know what I mean? It's like people don't understand where it stems from or where it all began. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I feel like I've gone a bit tangent there. Sorry, my recovery has been amazing.
And just because I've absorbed so much that I want to just come back a little bit at you with something, is that it strikes me that there's no coincidence that you've had this chaotic life, because you said you had this chaotic upbringing. What were you ever going to be apart from chaotic because of that chaotic start you had? So, you know, that's sort of the inevitable thing that was going to happen at some point with you. And then you said that time, and what really got me when you said you wanted to punch yourself in the face. But, you know, like, you can't feel like that, you know.
I was a kid. I was still a kid at 19.
You kept saying to me, and you were saying, like, I was in London, I was 13, I was a child. You know, you're a child. You don't know, none of that is you. None of that's your fault. You was abused, like, and I had to jump on that as well, the fact, and then you said that you was abused, but then you was sexually abused. Now, I was when I was about 7, and it formed a big part of my addiction. But then to me personally, mine was like, I was using it because it was like, oh, no wonder I'm like this, because I had that terrible thing happen. It wasn't until I could let that go that I could move on, and that had no power over me anymore.
Yeah.
Then that didn't define me. But, you know, the fact that, and as well, you just want to be loved. But you had no, and no, I'm not disrespecting your mum, but you had no love because your mum wasn't in a position to give you that love, and you was at such a young age when you had because what happens to us with that, we have our innocence taken away.
Yeah.
And then we've become sort of too open and too morbidly curious about stuff at too young an age and all that. It affects our choices that we make.
Absolutely.
So you're doing stuff you shouldn't be doing at a certain age, and you all of those things, and you've got this thing about you that's been, you feel that it's been spoiled. So I'm just trying to say that. I know you don't feel like punching yourself in the face now, but
No.
I know you feel better than that. But I just think you're an amazing person. Tell us how everything's for you now. How's life now?
Oh, do you know what? Life is a dream now, to be fair. I mean, I'm nowhere near where I want to be.
No.
I've got a feeling 2022 is going to be my year, though. Because I do still struggle with my mental health quite a bit, to be fair. And I feel like a lot of that is because I'm still stuck in some parts and I do still resent things from my past and I need to let go of, but I recognise that now, which is great. So I think once I let go of that stuff, I'm going to be unstoppable, mate, to be fair, without being biased. I just think, so I wrote my book and I smashed it. Since London, do you know what? I've sold 50 books.
Fantastic.
Since London, that was only 2 weeks ago. And it's like, come on. So I'm really buzzing, and it's not about profit margins with this book. It's about people reading the story.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I've read some of it back lately. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is so crap. And then I'm thinking, well, no, because people are not, with this book, it's not about the academic book writing or whatever. No. It's about the story that you're taking from it, the lessons and the because I don't hold back. I just tell it how it is, vulnerable or not. I feel like I always believed that vulnerability was a weakness and that I stopped crying. I stopped crying at one point in my life for since 2006 till 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I would not cry at anything. I held it in and then I just let it all go one day and then I just couldn't stop crying for about 3 days, but because I thought it was weakness. But actually vulnerability is a strength. It's the biggest strength you've got because with that vulnerability of sharing that, even just at the CEO events and stuff like that, seeing how much people's mindsets change the next day from hearing some of the stuff that I've shared and other people with lived experience shared, that's more powerful than a paycheck off Amazon. Do you know what I mean? Because it's wow, this is touching people. This is actually making people see that person sat there outside the TSB with the dirty, scruffy blanket is not a tramp, is not a smackhead, is not a pisshead. That is someone's child. That could be you. That could be Tom. That could be Harry over there. It could be Vanessa. Do you know, it could be anybody. It could be even God forbid it happened to someone in the public eye, that's got millions in the bank today, could lose everything tomorrow and literally be bankrupt with no place to go, with no government system that helps. So they're going to fall through the gaps, and it's it could happen to anyone, and anyone it hasn't happened to wants to think themselves lucky because it's do you know what I mean? I'm so jealous sometimes when I look at these people turning up at the CEO Sleepouts. It's you're only exposing yourself to it for the first time tonight. I got exposed to that life so young. Yeah. It's in me. It's literally within me. When I sleep out with these guys now, it's I feel like I'm meant to be there because that's where I grew up, sort of thing, on the streets, do you know, and it's just fit straight into it. And it's weird because I have the best night's sleep as well sometimes. Last one was absolutely freezing. So,
is that the one I was at?
No, Birmingham we were at last.
Was that colder?
Yes, it was absolutely. When you shiver, I was literally shivering from the inside out. It was that cold, and I just couldn't wait to get home and put my pajamas on. I just didn't even stop to do anything else. I just put my thumbs on, just got warm on the couch. It's like, 4 out. It's ridiculous. So,
but,
yeah.
You know, like what we do, you know, when this goes out, there will be a link. People, like, please look on the edits and on the bump at the bottom, and there'll be the links to Kerri's book. Make sure you buy it. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy it as soon as I get that link put on there. I'm going to buy it for myself for Christmas. That's the present I'm going to buy myself, because people need to know that we are people. You know, it's no doubt that you had that barrier up. Myself as well. We were damaged at a young age, and what happened to us? You are going to put a barrier up. And then what we did, we numbed everything off with drink and drugs. And then once you take away the drink and drugs, and you actually start feeling, because you haven't been feeling anything for so long, and feeling, it's really hard. You know, I found the first 5 years of recovery really hard, because I was feeling things for the first time. I didn't know how to deal with emotions. I found it, the whole thing, painful, to be honest. Yeah. And you're not where you are yet. I'm 15 years sober. I'm not where I need to be yet. I still have terrible black days. I still have all of these things. However, me and you, we're in a better place than we was last year.
Oh, absolutely.
And next year, we'll be in a better place than we are this year. And we're, you know, and people like me and you can help each other, because we cut from the, you know, like, we understand that this hole that's inside, and, you know,
it's that resonating, isn't it? I think that's a good, like, when you're trying to do what we do, like trying to help people in, I don't like the words that get put on it, like people that are vulnerable or people that are homeless, because I don't like labels, but, you know, people that we're trying to reach, you know, and it's like, I forgot what I was going to say now, sorry.
That's the toothache.
Okay,
your brain.
I've been distracted enough.
Distracted you from it for an hour.
Yeah. Oh, that was it. I remember now. So, like, when you've been there, you could, like, what's the worst thing you can say to someone at the day centre or rehabilitation service? Like, well, what do you know? You don't know what I'm going through, do you? Yeah. But, like, for us, like, you could be cutting someone's hair or whatever. You can relate. To the person more, and I think that helps with the trust, and it helps, you know. And I think more people that, you know, we're not really a minority getting through the other side. There's so many people, they're just not heard, and like you say, they hear me, see me, and I think they need to be encouraged to stand up and to speak, to be bold, because they're, even just speaking to one crowd is going to create a ripple effect, isn't it? Yeah. You know, it's going to, and if we all create ripple effect, I love this, I came out of it one day and I love it, actually. If we all scratch the surface, we're all going to see a bigger picture, you know, like, and I just think, like, even a brighter picture, and I just think it's so true. If each and every community or town, or if we all just came together and united, can you imagine the difference we could make? Yeah. Like, seriously. So I think they need more people like us standing up and being vulnerable and sharing what we've been through.
Well, Kerri, I can't think of a better way to end it, and I can't wait to read the book. I'm definitely gonna, you know, we'll do something together in the new year. I know we've got plans to sort of different centres we get to, and you're going to come along and see what I do, and I'm going to come along and listen to you at some other thing, I'm no doubt. But you know, I want to thank you for your time today. Thanks for sharing what you've shared. And, you know, everyone buy the fucking book. Buy Kerri's book. And it's not, as you say, it's not for the just, you know, you need a living. You know, you do need, you need some money coming in. You need money coming in a positive way. But also it's that thing of a message of hope. People need to hear a message of hope.
Do you know, you say that, everyone keeps telling me off, you know, saying you need to charge people for your time, you need to, like, get people to pay for your book or whatever. But people, like, I don't give a toss about money. I slept in a cardboard box with nothing. That money's nothing to me. And to be fair, it comes in this hand and goes straight out the other hand. And I've got no concept of it whatsoever. I mean, it's nice. Don't get me wrong. Please do buy the book if you're in a position to. Yeah. But it's not my priority. My priority is getting this book. And it ain't the best. I wrote it. I've got no, I'm in uni studying for a degree now, but I've got no, I never went to school, spent my days begging on Piccadilly. Do you know what I mean? So it's not, but it's the story that could possibly change lives. So, yeah.
And it's only got to change one.
Exactly. And
even
it has.
If it changes one.
It has. I was so proud to hear, sorry if we're going over now.
That's fine,
I was so proud to hear it. So Dan Atkins, who does Buses for Homeless, he I done this thing. I think it was last Christmas, Books of Hope, for the homeless. So I basically raised money to buy books and then sent them off, and I sent Dan 15 copies. And he got back to me and he said one person had read it, and it inspired him to write his own story. So that was what it was all about. That's what made the mission of writing the book complete. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, it's happy days. Happy days.
I can't wait to see you again. We'll have a cup of tea somewhere, I'm sure. I doubt if it'll be this year because this is flying by day by day at the moment. But yes, in the new year, we'll definitely hook up, and have a cuppa and a cake.
Sounds fab.
Thanks a lot. See you soon. Thank you. It's just over 5 years ago. I did something that changed my life. What it did, more than I could have ever realised, it helped me. I have met some absolutely amazing people, some of the people that work in some of these places. Many of them are volunteers, but some of them, it is their job. This is more than a job. This is a calling.